The wind was cold and wild, blowing white snow in every direction. Raylan pulled his thick coat tighter around his body as he walked through the frozen wasteland. His boots crunched on the ice, and each step felt heavy. He had been walking for hours, searching for old alien tech buried under the snow. This planet was far from Earth, cold, dead, and forgotten. But sometimes, old alien ships or machines could be found here, and they were worth good money. Raylan was a human scavenger. Working alone, he had no family left, and he liked the quiet. He trusted no one, especially not aliens, after the human-alien wars. He had learned that peace was just a lie. Aliens couldn't be trusted, not after what happened on Mars. But now, Raylan just wanted to survive, find something valuable, and go back to his base. As he climbed a small hill, something strange caught his eye. In the distance, near a broken tree, he saw two small shapes on the ground. They were not moving, just lying there like rocks. He raised his scanner and zoomed in. His heart skipped a beat to bodies, not human, glowing faintly in the snow. Raylan cursed under his breath. He should walk away, he told himself. But his legs moved forward, as if pulled by something unseen. When he got closer, he saw the two were girls. They had smooth, light purple skin and long silver hair. Their eyes were closed, their lips blue. They were freezing to death. Their clothes were thin, more like robes, and their bodies were shaking. Raylan hesitated. They were aliens, maybe dangerous, maybe a trap, but they looked so weak, so small, like lost children. One of them opened her eyes slowly. They glowed blue, soft and bright. She looked at Raylan and whispered something. He didn't understand the words, but the pain in her voice was clear. She reached out her hand and said one word he did understand. Savior. Raylan stood still. Confused and unsure, he looked around. No ships, no signs of others. Only these two girls and the freezing snow. He made a choice. He picked them up, one in each arm, and carried them back to his base. The journey was hard, but he moved fast. The girls were light and didn't resist. At his base, a small metal shelter built into a hill. He placed them near the heater and wrapped them in thermal blankets. He gave them warm water, then food. Slowly their color returned. Their bodies stopped shaking. They looked at him with wide eyes, still scared but alive. Raylan sat down across the room watching. Them. Who were they? Why were they here? He powered up his scanner and ran a DNA check. It took a minute, then the screen flashed red and yellow. Warning: unknown hybrid detected. Human DNA found 52%. Raylan stared at the screen, his heart pounding. Human DNA? How were these girls part human? He looked at them again. The one with glowing eyes was now holding her sister's hand, whispering something soft. The other girl coughed and slowly sat up. Raylan walked over and asked, "Can you understand me?" The older one nodded slowly, then said in a broken voice, "We, not bad." Please, Raylan didn't know what to say. He had never seen anything like this. Aliens with human DNA left to die in the snow. Calling him savior, the base was quiet. Only the sound of the heater and the wind outside. The younger sister looked at Raylan with tears in her eyes. "You help us," she said. "We stay." Raylan felt something strange in his chest. Warmth, confusion, fear, and something else. For years he had been alone, fighting, surviving. Now, two alien girls were sitting in his shelter, calling him savior, and they were half human. Outside, the snow kept falling, covering the old world in white silence. Inside, something new had started. A strange meeting, a strange bond, and a mystery that would change everything. Raylan didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing: he couldn't let them go. Not yet. Not until he knew the truth. The next morning, Raylan woke up early. The storm had passed, but the world outside was still cold and white. He checked the heater and made sure the power was running. Then he turned to look at the two girls. They were still sleeping, wrapped in thick blankets, their faces calm. He moved quietly and made some hot soup. As the smell filled the small base, one of the girls opened her eyes. It was the younger one, the one who had said savior. She sat up slowly, still weak, but her eyes were brighter today. Raylan handed her the soup, and she took it with both hands. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft and slow. Raylan was surprised. You speak English? She nodded. Little we learned from. Screen he didn't understand fully, but he knew one thing they were trying. He turned to the older girl, who was also waking up now. Her eyes were serious, calm, and full of something hidden. I'm Raylan, he said, pointing to himself. The younger girl smiled. Kira? Shalura? Lura gave a slow nod, but didn't smile. She seemed older, more careful, more protective. Kira was open, curious, and gentle. Raylan asked, What happened to you? Kira looked at Lura as if asking permission to speak. Lura gave a small nod. Kira began to explain in simple words, We made, not born like you. We made in lab. Raylan stared at them, confused. In a lab. By who? Aliens, Kira? Said they take human mix with us. Raylan felt a chill. Not from the cold, but from fear. Human-alien experiments, those were banned after the war. It was illegal and dangerous, Kira continued. We were tools. Made to serve, obey. Her eyes lowered and her voice grew quiet. But we escape when lab destroyed. We run in pod. Raylan listened closely, trying to understand every word. The pod. It crashed here. He asked. Kira nodded. Yes, very cold. We sleep then. You, Lure, finally spoke, her voice deeper and firm. You save us. No one ever saved before. Raylan looked at them, not just as aliens now, but as victims. They were created, not born, made by someone who broke the rules. They had no home, no family, and no one to help them except him. He stood up and walked over to his computer. He ran another scan using a small hair sample Kira had left on the pillow. The results were shocking. Again, 53% human, 47% unknown alien. Their DNA was stable, but enhanced, faster healing, stronger bones, and possible telepathic skills. Raylan couldn't believe it. If the government found out, the girls would be taken away, used, tested, maybe even destroyed. He looked back at them. They were talking softly to each other. Lura touched Kira's hand, and the lights in the room flickered slightly. He walked over. Was that you? Lura looked guilty. We learned control, still new. Raylan understood now they had powers, but they didn't fully understand them yet. He sighed and sat down, rubbing his face. This is big, he said to himself. Too big. Kira tilted her head. You scared? Raylan shook his head. Not of you. He was scared of what would come next. Someone out there might be looking for them. He needed to protect them, but also protect himself. That night, Raylan taught them more English, using his old learning tablet. They picked up fast, repeating words, and laughing when they got them right. Kira loved human music, tapping her fingers to the beat. Lura liked reading old Earth books, especially stories about heroes and choices. Raylan watched them and felt strange inside. He had lived alone for years, never letting anyone close. But now, his small shelter was full of life, laughter, and questions. He saw them not as aliens anymore, but as something new. A piece of both worlds caught in the middle, before. Bedlura looked at him and said, You saved us, but also, you changed us, Raylan smiled. You're changing me too. They didn't speak more that night, but something unspoken passed between them.
Not fear.
Not orders, not lies, just trust. And outside, the snow began to fall again, soft, quiet. But now it felt different. It felt like the start of something new, something powerful, something worth fighting for. Far away in space, a red light blinked on a dark screen. A hidden ship, floating near the edge of the galaxy, picked up the signal. It was faint, but Clara Crashpod had activated an old tracking beacon. Inside the ship, a tall, armored figure, named Vork, stared at the glowing signal. His cold, black eyes narrowed. He turned to his soldiers and growled. We found them. Meanwhile, on the snowy planet, Raylan had no idea someone was coming. He was busy fixing the old antenna on top of his shelter. He didn't know that when the alien sister's pod crashed, it had sent a distress signal, Signal now being tracked by dangerous people. Inside the base, Kira was learning to cook. She had burned the first 2 meals, but laughed as Raylan helped her try again. Lyra sat quietly near the corner, reading old files from Raylan's datapad. She was quiet most of the time, but watched everything. Raylan knew she was thinking deeply. That evening, as the 3 of them ate together, Raylan looked at his small radar screen. There was nothing strange yet, just a normal snowstorm outside. Still, he felt uneasy, like a cold shadow had passed. Through the room, he didn't know why, but his instincts told him something bad was coming. After dinner, Kira showed Raylan a small glowing stone she had kept from the crash pod. It pulsed with soft blue light. This helped power ship. She said, but also... Sen's voice? Raylan's eyes widened. Sen's voice? You mean signal? Kira nodded slowly. Yes. Maybe someone heard. Raylan stood up fast and ran to his scanner. He searched for any open signals or energy bursts. The results made. His stomach twist. There had been a shortwave transmission sent 2 nights ago. He hadn't noticed it, but now it was too late. He turned to Lyra. Is there a tracker in the stone? Lyra looked at him, serious and calm. Not in stone, she said, but in us. Raylan's eyes widened. You mean your body sends a signal? Lyra nodded. Only when we hurt or scared or when pod crash. Raylan sat down, rubbing his forehead. This means someone could be coming for you right now. Kira's face turned pale. They find us? Raylan looked at them both. We don't know yet, but we need to prepare. Over the next 2 days, they worked hard. Raylan upgraded the base's defense's motion sensors, laser traps, and backup power. He also taught the sisters how to hide, how to run, and how to stay calm. He gave them simple weapons, a stun stick for Kira, and a heat blade for Lyra. Lyra showed good control, slicing metal with 1 clean swing. Kira wasn't as strong, but she was fast and clever. They trained during the day and slept in shifts at night. Raylan barely rested, always checking the radar screen. He kept remembering the wars, the betrayals, the pain, but now it was different. He wasn't fighting for money or orders. He was protecting something, someone, maybe even a family. Late one night, Kira sat beside him as he stared at the radar. Why you help us? She asked softly. Raylan didn't answer at first. Then he said, because no one helped me when I needed it. Kira smiled gently, her eyes full of warmth. We won't leave you, she said, even if danger comes. Suddenly, the radar screen beeped. Raylan jumped up and stared. An object had entered the atmosphere. A small red dot was moving slowly toward the surface. Not a snowstorm, not a rock. Something alive, something flying. Raylan zoomed in on the signal, and his blood ran cold. The ship was not human, and it wasn't friendly. It was a bounty ship marked with a symbol he remembered from the war, a symbol used by hybrid hunters. They're here, he said quietly. The sisters came to his side, looking at the screen. Lyra placed her hand on his arm. We fight. Raylan looked at them both, proud but scared. You don't have to, he said. I can hide you. But Kira shook her head. No, we protect you too. They all stood there, together, watching the ship draw closer. Outside, snow fell gently, covering the ground in soft white layers, but inside the shelter, a storm was building. Raylan checked his old battle armor, pulled out his last working plasma rifle. He looked at the sisters, one strong and serious, the other kind and bright. They were no longer just passengers. They were part of his world now, part of his fight. And whoever came looking for them would soon find out this wasn't just a rescue mission. This was a warning. The snow would soon be red, and Raylan was ready. The snowstorm ended the next morning. The sky was clear, but the air was colder than ever. Raylan stood outside his shelter, staring at the horizon. He saw something, dark shapes in the sky, slowly coming closer. It was not a cloud, not a bird, and not a trick of the light. It was a ship, black and wide, like a floating shadow. The alien bounty ship landed on the nearby mountain ridge. Made no sound, but the snow around it melted from its heat. Raylan watched carefully through his binoculars. He counted 4 figures walking out, their armor dark red and silver, and one tall figure in the front, covered in thick black armor. Vorkel. Raylan had heard of Vorkel before, Was a hybrid hunter, part machine, part alien. He was known for capturing escaped creations, the kind made in secret labs. He worked for powerful alien leaders who believed hybrids should be controlled or destroyed inside the base. Kira was helping Lura adjust her weapon. Raylan came in quickly, locking the door behind him. "There. Here," he said. "And they're not here to talk?" Kira's eyes widened. "Vorkel." Raylan nodded yes, and he's not alone. Raylan grabbed his old battle armor from the storage unit. It was scratched and worn, but still strong. He slipped into the suit, piece by piece. As the sisters watched, he handed each of them a small COMM device. "If we get separated, use this to call me," he said. They nodded without fear. Outside, Vorkel and his team reached the base. They scanned the area, noticing the security traps. One of his soldiers stepped on a hidden Wyran. Explosion threw him backward. Vork didn't flinch. He spoke in a deep, rough voice. "They prepared for us. Good. Back inside." Raylan checked the radar. "They'll be at the door in 10 minutes, he said. Lura stood next to him, holding her heat blade. "We fight together," she said firmly. Kira added, "We win together." Raylan smiled slightly. "All right then. Let's show them what humans and hybrids can do." As the enemy approached, the ground shook under their heavy boots. Raylan pressed a button, and hidden turrets popped up from the snow. They fired lasers, pushing the enemies back. But Vorkel used a shield that blocked the shots easily. He raised a hand, and a small drone flew toward the base. Raylan saw it on the screen and shot it down with one quick blast. Then he turned. "To the girls, we hold them off here. But if they break in, run to the lower tunnel." Lura frowned. "We don't leave you," Raylan replied. "Not asking, I'm ordering." The wall shook as Vorsel's soldiers used a plasma torch. On the door, Raylan took position near the entrance, his rifle ready. Kira and Lura stood behind him, their faces calm but strong. Suddenly the door exploded open. Fire and smoke filled the air. Raylan fired the first shot, hitting one of the soldiers. The room filled with noise, light, and chaos. Lura moved fast. Slicing through metal with her blade, Kira used her hands to create flashes of blinding light. Stunning the attackers, Vork stepped into the room, tall and powerful. He looked at Raylan and said, "Step aside, human. The girls belong to us." Raylan aimed his gun at him. They belonged to no one. The fight was brutal. Raylan took hits, but kept fighting. Lura jumped on a soldier and disarmed him with ease. Kira ran to protect the power unit, stopping a blast just in time. The base shook from the impact of weapons. But they held their ground. Raylan faced Vorkel alone. Both weapons raised. Vorkel moved fast. Faster than expected, he hit Raylan hard. Throwing him against the wall, Raylan's armor cracked, and pain shot through his body. Lura screamed and ran at Vorkel. Swinging her blade, he caught it with one hand, twisting it away, but Kira sent out a pulse of light that blinded him for a second. That second was enough. Raylan got back up, bleeding but determined. He charged forward and tackled Vork, pushing him into the power grid. Sparks flew everywhere and the lights went out. The base fell into silence. Only heavy breathing could be heard. Vork lay on the ground, shocked and smoking. The rest of the enemies had been defeated or escaped into the snow. Raylan sat down slowly, his body weak and broken. Lura and Kira ran to him, checking his wounds. "You okay?" Kira asked. Raylan gave a tired smile, still standing. They helped him to the bed, wrapping his wounds. Outside, the storm returned, covering the battlefield with snow. But inside, the warmth of victory filled the air. They had won together. And Raylan now knew the sisters were not just strangers. They were warriors, family, and maybe even something more. The storm outside grew stronger. Wind screamed across the mountain. Shaking the base walls inside, Raylan lay on a bed, his chest wrapped in bandages. He was hurt, but he was alive. Kira sat beside him, gently cleaning the blood from his forehead. "You almost died," she whispered, tears in her eyes. Raylan smiled weakly. "Not yet." Lura stood near the door, watching for any signs of danger. She was silent. but her eyes never stopped moving. Vorkel's body was gone when the storm hit. His soldiers had dragged him away into the snow. They had lost the fight, but they were not done yet. "You're not strong enough," Kira said, pushing him back down. Raylan shook his head. "If they return with more, this base won't hold." Lyra turned to him. "And we fight outside in the snow, where we see them coming that night." They made a plan. Raylan would rest, while the sisters prepared traps in the open fields. They planted mines, set up blinding lights, and even used parts of the broken bounty ship. Kira created mirrors from metal sheets to reflect lasers. Lyra carved tunnels through the snow, hidden paths to move unseen. Raylan watched from inside. Pressed, they moved like soldiers, fast and smart. They weren't just survivors now, they were warriors, and they were protecting him, just as he had once protected them. The next morning, the sky turned dark, not because of a storm, but because of ships. 2 new enemy vessels appeared in the sky. Despite the pain, "It's time," he said. The sisters helped him to the surface. They hid behind a snowbank as the enemy ships landed again this time. More soldiers came out, heavy machines and flying drones too. Vorkel was not among them. But his second in command, a creature named Drask, led the attack. Drask shouted in a deep voice, "Surrender the hybrids, or face total destruction." Raylan laughed quietly. "Let's show them our answer." He pressed a button on his wrist. A hidden mine exploded under one of the machines, sending it flying into pieces. The snow became a battlefield. Lasers lit the sky, explosions shook the ground. Raylan fired from a high ridge, hitting targets. With perfect aim, Lyra moved through the tunnels, cutting through enemy lines with her blade. Kira used her light blasts to confuse and blind the drones. It was chaos, but it was working. The enemies were strong. And the sound dropped 3 attackers in one blast. Lyra leapt from the snow, slicing 2 more before disappearing again. Kira stood on a rock, glowing like a star, pushing back enemies with her energy. They fell back toward the base, but the attackers followed fast. Raylan turned to Kira. "We need to end this now." Kira looked around, her face pale. Her eyes filled with light. She held Lyra's hand tightly and whispered something in there. Native tongue, Lyra nodded, and together they raised their hands toward the sky. The snow around them lifted, spinning in the air like a storm. Energy crackled between their palms, building into a bright blue sphere. Raylan shielded his eyes as the sisters released the power. A giant wave of light exploded from them, hitting everything in sight. The ground shook, the air screamed, and the enemy soldiers dropped like toys. Drones crashed, machines shut down, and the field went silent. Raylan slowly stood up, shocked. The sisters were on the ground, breathing heavily, their skin glowing faintly. He ran to them, lifting Kira in his arms. "You did it," he said, his voice shaking. Kira smiled weakly. "We protect." Family Lyra crawled beside them, her arm bleeding. Raylan helped her too. "Need to get back to the base." Together, they walked slowly through the snow, back to safety, inside. Raylan laid them on soft blankets and cleaned their wounds. He looked at their face. He's tired, hurt, but strong. "You saved me again," he said, "both of you." Kira reached out and touched his face. "Because you saved us first." Lyra nodded. "We are one now." Raylan didn't speak, but he felt something deep in his heart. These 2 sisters, once strangers. Once again, but inside, a new bond had formed. A bond stronger than blood, a bond made in war and sealed in trust. No more red lights on the radar, only silence, cold air, and a strange new peace. Raylan sat near the heater inside the base, sipping hot tea. His arm was in a sling. His ribs still sore, but he was alive, and so were the sisters. Lyra sat across from him, her wounded shoulder healing fast. Alien blood worked differently. Stronger, quicker. Kira was in the corner, painting something on a metal panel. Her art was simple. 3 figures under a sky full of stars. They didn't talk much for the first 2 days. Happened, Raylan cleaned the weapons and repaired the outer walls. Lyra sharpened her blade and checked the energy cells. Kira worked on building small devices, radios, heaters, and lights. Even in silence, there was comfort.
Oh.
They had faced something terrible together and survived. On the third evening, Raylan finally asked the question on his mind, "What happens now?" Lura looked up. "We don't know." Kira walked over and sat next to Raylan. "We want to stay," she said, "but we don't know if you want that." Raylan leaned back in his chair, thinking he had lived alone for so long. No one to talk to, no one to trust. But now, these two sisters were in his world. They had risked their lives for him, and he had done the same. "I want you to stay," he said quietly. Kira smiled. "Then we stay." Lura nodded once. "We build new life." The next morning, they began rebuilding the base. The outer wall was reinforced with stronger metal. Kira added solar panels to store more power. Lyra helped Raylan dig a second escape tunnel, just in case. Inside, they cleaned the living space and made it feel like a real home. They placed soft lights on the walls, built extra storage, and even made a small table for meals. Raylan found an old cooking unit in his supplies and taught Kira how to use it. She laughed when the first meal burned, but the second try was perfect. Lura, quiet as always, began reading more of Raylan's books. She liked history, stories of Earth, and tales about warriors who fought for what they believed. She especially liked one quote, "Family is not always by blood, but by choice." Raylan started writing a journal. He didn't plan to send it to Earth, at least not yet, but he wanted to remember everything. How he found them in the snow, how they changed his life, and how he changed theirs one night, while the fire crackled in the corner. Kira handed him a small metal ring. It was shaped from the crash pod's broken piece, polished and smooth. "For you," she said shyly. From both of us, Raylan took it, his hand shaking slightly. "What's this for?" Kira looked at Lura, who stepped forward and said, "In our culture, this means we choose someone." "For life." Raylan stared at them, unsure what to say. "You're serious?" Lura nodded. "You saved us, protected us, gave us freedom. We were made to follow orders, but now we follow our hearts," Kira added softly. "We don't want to be owned. We want to belong with you." Raylan sat in silence, the ring in his hand, his heart beat faster. Not from fear, but from something else. He had never imagined this moment. Two alien sisters, half-human, offering their loyalty and their hearts. He looked at them, their eyes full of truth. He remembered the cold night when he found them, the battles they fought, and the way they stayed by his side. "I don't know what kind of life this will be," he said slowly. Lura replied, "We don't care, as long as we are with you." Raylan slid the ring on his finger. "It's not a normal life," he said, "but it's ours." Kira smiled wide and hugged him. Lura placed her hand on his shoulder, calm and strong in that small moment inside a shelter surrounded by endless snow. A strange family was born, not from blood, not from duty, but from choice, that night. The stars were clear above the frozen sky. Raylan stood outside with the sisters, watching the lights dance in silence. He didn't feel alone anymore, and for the first time in many years he was not afraid of tomorrow. Weeks passed slowly, and the frozen planet began to feel less lonely. The snow still fell, the winds still howled, but inside the small shelter, there was warmth. Not just from the heater, but from the quiet bond the three of them now shared. Raylan had changed. He no longer moved like a man just trying to survive. He smiled more, he laughed sometimes, and he talked about his past. Told stories from Earth about oceans, trees, cities filled with light. Kira listened with wide eyes, asking 100 questions. Lura sat quietly, memorizing every word. They were not just learning about Earth, they were learning about what it meant to live like humans. Raylan built a second shelter nearby, larger, stronger, and better hidden. They used parts from the fallen enemy ships, turning weapons into tools. Kira painted the walls with glowing colors, filling the rooms with life. Lura added security systems and camouflaged the entrance with snow and stone. They were no longer just hiding, they were building a home. One afternoon, a strange alert came through the radar. It wasn't an enemy ship this time, but a quiet scan from deep space. Raylan checked the signal. It was from Earth Command. They were sending a patrol team to investigate strange energy spikes on the planet. The energy from the sisters' final battle had reached space. Raylan stood still, holding the message. He knew what this meant. If Earth found out about Lura and Kira, they would take them away, not because they were evil, but because they were different. Governments feared what they didn't understand. He told the sisters everything. Kira looked scared. Will they hurt us? Raylan shook his head. Not if I protect you, Lura said calmly. We will not run. This is our home now, Raylan thought all night, staring at the stars. He had a choice: hide the truth, or face it with courage. The next morning he made his decision. If they come, I tell them the truth, he said. You are not weapons. You are not mistakes. You are my family. The day Earth's patrol ship arrived, the sky flashed silver. A clean white ship landed gently near the mountain. 2 officers stepped out, scanning the area. Raylan met them at the edge of the field, calm and ready. They greeted him politely, surprised to find a human living alone on such a harsh planet. Raylan told them a little, but not everything at first. He showed them the ruins of the enemy ships and explained the attack. He told them how he defended the base and survived, but then he looked them in the eyes and said, There's something else you need to see. He brought them to the shelter, where Lura and Kira waited. The officers raised their weapons in surprise. But Raylan stepped in front of the sisters. They are not your enemy, he said. They are not invaders. They're not a threat. The officers listened as Raylan told the full story. How he found them in the snow, how they helped him fight, how they saved his life, and how they chose to stay. Lura stood tall and proud, saying, We are not tools, we are not slaves, we choose who we are, Kira added. We are not just part human, we are part family. The officers looked at each other, unsure. One of them asked Raylan, What do you want us to do with this information? Raylan answered, Nothing. Just let us live in peace. After a long silence, the officers nodded slowly. They turned off their scanners, took a few pictures of the wreckage, and said officially, We found no survivors, only ruins. Before they left, one of them smiled at Kira and said, Take care of him. He's a lucky man. Kira smiled back. We all are. As the patrol ship lifted into the sky, the 3 of them stood together, watching, no longer afraid, no longer hiding. Raylan took a deep breath, feeling something new: freedom, not just from war or pain, but from the fear of being alone. Lura leaned against him, calm and steady. Kira held his hand, warm and soft. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. That night, they sat outside under the stars, wrapped in thick blankets. The snow sparkled like tiny lights. The sky above, clear and endless. Kira whispered, I like this planet now. Raylan smiled. Me too. Lura looked up and said, We never had a place before. Now we do. Raylan nodded. It's not perfect, but it's ours. The wind was gentle. The stars were bright, and for the first time in a long time, Raylan didn't feel like a soldier or a survivor. He felt like something stronger, something better. He felt like a man with a home, and beside him, 2 alien sisters smiled. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Together, they had faced war, fear, and darkness. Together, they had found something rare, a new kind, a family born in the snow and strong enough to face any storm.